make a space for us to connect on a casual level, much like we might in the lobby of a theater, or maybe at lunch or at dinner after screenings. This is really just a wonderful way for us all to connect, especially during these times. So we're really excited to see so many of you here joining us this evening for that. So tonight is a very much a discussion driven program. So we absolutely invite you to participate either through the chat function, which can be accessed in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little chat icon, or you can also raise your hand, which is also found in the bottom toolbar in something called the reactions field. And at that point, we will unmute you and you'll be able to speak or comment or ask any question you might like. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our guest for today, who will be kicking off our discussion. So Beth Accomando covers arts and culture around San Diego for KPBS News, having started there in 1987 and amassing more than 25 years as a film critic. Beth studied film at UC San Diego. She has edited the sequels to The Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and video documentaries on Billy Wilder and roller hockey. Since 1997, she has been covering independent and international cinema, as well as pop culture for National Public Radio and Public Radio International's The World. She has received numerous Society of Professional Journalists awards and San Diego Press Club awards for her radio and website work at KPBS. She has also received 11 Southwestern Area Emmy Awards in the categories of producing, writing, and sound design for promotional spots, as well as National Pro Max and Telly Awards while working at Fox. She has a passion for Hong Kong cinema, Japanese monster movies, horror, and film noir. So without further ado, Beth, I am going to send it your way.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can see some of my monsters behind me in my library here. I'm really thrilled to be part of this film chat. I have been working with the San Diego Jewish Film Festival since its inception, I believe, since Lynette Allen had asked me to help check splices on the 16mm films that were being shown. So I feel a close connection with this film festival. And one of the things I've always enjoyed is the fact that the festival has great discussions and great opportunities to talk about film. So they said I could start by talking about some of the favorite films I saw this year. And there were two that really stood out. Now, I understand that not everybody is going to get as excited by white-gloved archivists as I do. But when people put on white gloves and take out reels of film and open them up, and I know that smell of opening a can of film, and it's fabulous. So the two films that had this in them were Tomorrow When the Apricots Bloom and Glass Negatives. And both of these films were just wonderful in terms of taking you on this journey to some forgotten time, something that you really feel like you're being transported somewhere else. And especially Tomorrow When the Apricots Bloom, that discovery of Egyptian cartoons was just amazing. And, that sense of discovery of finding these boxes and these cans of film and opening them up and finding that the negatives were still viable, that you could still look at them, that you could still find an image, and that you could project some of these films. I mean, that's a feeling that I would love to have. I remember I used to program films over at UCSD for their International Film Festival that Ruth Bailey used to run. And we ran this Japanese monster film called Gamera. And we got the print, and we opened up the can, and it was completely sealed. It had never been opened before. I took my son, who was about 9 years old, I dragged him up to the projection booth, and I said, you have to smell this, because you will never probably have the opportunity to smell a brand new 35mm print ever again in your life. And so, he looked at me like I was insane, but it was amazing. Like, it was just pristine. And we got to run that film for the very first time. So I have a real connection to that movie. And then Glass Negatives is finding, in an attic, these negatives with no identification, no idea who's in them, who took them, where they were from. And that sense of trying to unearth the stories behind the entire collection, behind individual photos, and kind of taking you through that process. And not all the questions are answered. You know, you go through it and they think they know who took some of the pictures. They're not 100% sure, but having specific answers is not necessarily the thing that you know need to have at the end of that film. It's that whole journey, and just some of those photographs themselves are just wonderful time capsules and wonderful works of art just in themselves. So to me, like, those two films just leapt out at me this year when I was watching some of the screeners, and I really enjoyed them. And I don't know if any people have seen them yet or are planning to check them out, but I do urge you to do that. I think those are really exceptional, and I think those are the kind of films that you're not going to have an opportunity to see elsewhere. You know, some of the other narrative films may end up getting releases, or, you know, get screened elsewhere, or end up on, you know, places like Amazon or Criterion. But these two films feel quite unique, and I really applaud the festival for bringing films like that here and allowing people to have an opportunity to see unique journeys like that. So I don't know, I'm happy to talk about some of the other films if some people want to already chime in and talk about some of the stuff that they have seen, or I'm not sure how you guys want to. I don't know if this is the first film chat you guys have done for the Jewish Film Festival, so I guess we can kind of set the formula any way we want, because it's just starting out, which is kind of exciting. So if anybody has a film that they'd like to recommend, if you want to raise your hand or put a note in the, let's see, somebody said Tango Shalom. Which one, does anybody want to talk about that? That's one that I did not see. Let's see, Sarah, are you available?
And yes, we invite you absolutely to, if you feel comfortable, again, you can access the raise hand function at the bottom, and then we will be able to unmute you. So,
Or
so far,
physically raise your hand too,
yeah.
if you want.
Or if you want to physically raise it, that's great too. So we already have Nancy.
Sarah. Oh, I think Sarah, she's the one who talked about Tango Shalom. So
yeah, I just saw, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just saw Tango Shalom and I loved it. I was actually very enthusiastic that I even got it, and it was well written, it's touching, it's funny, it has a wonderful message. And in fact, I saw Love in Suspenders last year, which I really liked, and I like this even better. So it's uplifting, and actually, sadly, one of the actors at the end, it says in memory of, and the actor who played the priest in the movie unfortunately had died. So it does say in memory of him, but I just thought it was a wonderful movie. And the dancing is phenomenal. It's a great story. The acting is good. It's, like I said, it's funny, it's touching, you know, just really uplifting.
That's great. So I think that if some of these films are playing or coming up, if you want, check the chat, because they are going to try and list if any of the films are still available. One of the nice things about this year's virtual festival, every festival, you know, is different, trying to figure out how to navigate this virtual world. So one of the things that's nice about what the Jewish Film Festival is doing is a lot of the films are available, what you call on demand. So the titles were available the day the festival started all the way through to the end. So if you hear about them halfway through, you don't have to worry that you've missed them. You can still have an opportunity. There are some titles that are limited release, where they're only available for like a 48-hour window. But a lot of them are available throughout the entire festival. So the nice thing about that is if you're chatting with friends who have gone to the festival and recommend something, then you will most likely have an opportunity to still catch it. Somebody posed a question about Asia. That's not one of the films that I've seen. I don't know, Marshall, if you saw it and want to share anything about it, or if you're just curious about what it is.
Well, this is Nancy. I think I had my hand raised already. I wanted to comment on the two films you already talked about, Glass Negatives and the Apricots. And I liked both of them. And the thing that was nice was the kind of mystery that, solving a mystery part of the Glass Negatives, because nobody knew what these things were. And the the addition to the Apricots one was the, emotional story of the wife, the woman who, the mother of the people who found the treasure trove. Her relationship with everyone and her attitude and all of that was just, a nice theme that was carrying through the film, in addition to the, the functional part of the, unpacking the archives, so to speak. In addition to that, I'm only about halfway through the films, and it's a lot of movies to see. So it's harder to fit into your lifestyle when you're at home and doing it virtually, rather than just taking 10 days and going to the movie theater and giving everything else up. But there's a lot of documentaries, and almost every one of them is excellent. I really thought that they very high quality documents, all interesting documentaries, all very interesting subjects. Let's see, which, like the Holy Land one, the Holy Silence. Interesting that they all have holy in their title, but and the other two as well. So I'm actually enjoying those documentaries, even though in some cases the subject matter itself is quite disturbing. I like Till Kingdom Come was not a favorite because of the content as opposed to the skill, but just a lot of skill in making the documentaries, and most of them flowed, really nicely. It didn't get bored or fall asleep or anything. Just one comment also on Asia, which I did see, and I'm not sure it's still available, but or maybe one more day, but it's an amazing film. It just very powerful. The ending is, a little brutal, but it just was really, as a fictional work, it was really beautifully done and very well acted, and the story was very interesting. So I did like that one a lot. So,
Great. Well, thank you. You mentioned Holy Silence, which was very interesting. This was about the Vatican's response to anti-Semitism during the war. And one of the things, again, I like about this format for the festival is you can kind of create your own programming blocks, and you can go through and see films that maybe have similar themes. So I ended up watching Holy Silence back to back with Syndrome K, which was about the Jewish doctors in Italy who created made up a disease in order to hide Jews in the hospital. And I thought that was it was a really nice compliment to watch those two films back to back. And both of them were things that I had really never explored about World War II. So I was, fascinated to have something, shine a light on something new for me.
Yeah, there was another one that was also about the Vatican or related to that. I can't remember which it was, but which was interesting that there's kind of crossover between a number of films. That's really actually nice if you can catch them that way.
All right, we still have Holy Silence is still available, and Asia is only available through 11:59 tonight. So if you guys are quick and wanting to stay up late, you can catch that one. Ryan, what would you like to talk about?
I just wanted to add for clarification with Asia, you have until 11:59 p.m. tonight to purchase it and
Oh.
begin viewing it. But if you don't want to stay up till 2 a.m., you can watch the first 5 seconds of it, pause it, and then return to it anytime tomorrow, anytime for the following 24 hours. So it's a trick that could come in handy if anybody wants to. That's all. I have nothing of substance to add, Beth, just the procedure.
You don't have a favorite film so far?
You know what? The Crossing. I gotta say, I came late on it and it stopped on me about 2/3 of the way through, and I can't wait to figure out how to get a hold of it and watch the rest of it. I started it a couple nights ago. It had been a long day of sitting behind my computer watching the festival happen, and I decided to take in one of the films I hadn't seen yet. And within 3 minutes, I was completely drawn into it. And then fatigue set in and my body gave out on me. And by the time I got back to watching it again last night, I ran out of time. But if anybody has seen that, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts were. It's a pretty well framed story and interesting perspective.
And so we do have backup through the chat. We had a comment from Michelle wanting to hear about Perfect. And then after that, we also have Susan's raising her hand. So we'll start with Michelle and then go to Susan. And Michelle, if you feel comfortable unmuting or saying anything, or if Beth would like to comment on Perfect as well.
Perfect is not one that I've seen yet. I think I've only seen about a dozen of the films so far, and I'm working on some more. But has anybody seen Perfect and want to talk about it? We got a hand raised over there. Michelle, yeah.
Hi, I just had to figure out how to unmute. Thank you for being with us tonight, and I'm glad to hear you're enjoying the festival. I loved Perfect. Having a background in rehab and working with disability rights, and having worked with Joe Stromando before in the past, who's an adjunct professor at SDSU in philosophy and ethics and eugenics. I found his discussion with the director to just be fascinating. I'd like to recommend it for people to watch as a social justice type of film, where it talks about the interpersonal aspects and the self-actualization of people who are physically disabled, mentally disabled, and from birth, congenitally, and also advantageously, either through accidents or illness or other things. The thing I found so fascinating was in Israel, in a culture and in a country that has been ravaged by war for decades, and also that has had remarkable leaps and gains in medical and physical rehab, that the disabled are so closeted and so unaccepting, most of them, along with the public, about their disability and being in public. It reminds me of the Japanese culture, which I think in this aspect is like 30 years behind us. And Israel also has a lot of those aspects of shame, inadequacy, just some of the people in it were fabulous. One woman who was born deaf of deaf parents. She goes, this is the way I am, you know, take me or leave me. Somebody else born with cerebral palsy was very, very frisky in who she was and how she presented herself to the world. Other people who had had accidents later in life, either through war or unfortunate circumstances, really had a lot more self-doubt and a lot more sometimes introspection and need. And I just found it remarkable that in Israel, with this culture of war and advent of rehab and disability and mobility, that it wasn't more woke. So I don't know if anybody saw the film and what was their impression of it.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah, and I will say that just having had the opportunity to talk with Yaniv and Joe and have the discussion, that it was such a wonderful opportunity, and watching Yaniv's also progression and his transformation and evolution from where he was starting on the project as the director, his own views towards the disabled community, and how he really kind of evolved through the process of the filmmaking, and how it was really just an opportunity to give a voice, give representation, and that has been so successful in so many ways for disabled persons in Israel. And so thank you so much for adding that too. And I know that Susan, we wanted to get to you too. You had your hand up. We will unmute.
Okay, unmute. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm going to make a quick comment about that Ryan made. I saw The Crossing and also loved it. I thought it was so heart-wrenching and heartwarming at the same time about children, and it brought to light, you know, the involvement of children in this horrific time that the Holocaust was. And I thought it was a beautiful movie, and I thought it was very well done. As far as Asia goes, I thought the acting was wonderful. I thought it was very, you know, very heartfelt and really got the emotion across. I myself, for the slow torture of seeing what happened in it and experiencing that, as a mother also, it was a little too painful for me to imagine that kind of pain. And it was a little, I just said, why am I watching what could be so horribly upsetting on a personal level? But anyway, it was beautifully done. But what I wanted to comment on mainly was Liberation Heroes is one that I watched. And I thought that it was really very timely also. Not only was it really well done, the footage was, of course, you know, truly, truly horrific, being the story of what the liberators actually saw there. But to hear it from them and to hear their description of it and to see how it changed their lives and the meaning that it had for them for their life going forward was, I thought, really captured in that movie. And also, it was very nice to see how the gentleman who was kind of telling the story a lot, how he is expanding it and keeping the history alive and telling how horrific it was and showing how horrific it was and speaking to audiences and high schoolers and everything, because as we all know, very few survivors are around and will be around in the next few years. And I think it's very important that we keep the story alive so that young people know. But what it also bridges for is very timely in what's happening and how the United States and how other countries reacted when people were trying to escape for their lives and trying to get entry into these countries, and how, in immigration, the countries would not allow them in, would not admit them. And I think it not only had a story about that time, but it has a story about our time as well. So it was very meaningful, I thought, and very well done.
Well, I think it's amazing that there are a number of documentaries about World War II at the festival this year that, you think you've seen a lot of documentaries about this time frame and read a lot, and they're still uncovering either information or just speaking with people who, whose stories are worth telling and who shed light on different perspectives or different aspects. And I think it's amazing that they can continue to find documentaries that kind of break new ground on some of these topics that we think we know.
Right.
So, and I apologize, but When the Apricots Bloom is no longer available, but maybe there's some way we can get it back for another screening event or something. Maybe when we can meet in person and we can have some film out there that you can all smell.
And then we did have a question from Sarah. How was The Way We Are?
I did not see that one. Has anyone here seen The Way We Are?
I think it's a one-night one. Yeah,
So,
it's a one-night one.
yeah, there've been a few of those.
Are we talking about Here We Are?
Or Here We Are?
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Yeah, that one is our next limited time screening, the last one, and it will be available the 19th and the 20th. Right?
So that's
Brian?
Friday. Friday and Saturday.
Put it in the chat, but I have the right info, but that's our last limited time screening to come up.
And then Beth, we did receive actually a private message asking if you would be willing to share just a couple of the other films that you've seen through the course of the festival that you don't mind just sharing a little bit about your thoughts.
Sure. I don't know if they're available or not. So I apologize if I speak of one that is gone, like When the Apricots Bloom. I was really interested in the Walter Winchell documentary because my dad loved radio. And so when I was young, he had these records of old radio broadcasts, and some of it contained people like Walter Winchell, people that were personalities. So I had remembered as a child hearing him, and he has a very distinctive radio voice and way of writing for radio. And I never knew anything really about him as a person. So I thought that documentary was really fascinating, going into how much power he gained. And, talking about someone in the media gaining power and then, tying themselves to political leaders. First, he tied himself to FDR because he was invited to the White House. He was very impressed by that. But then later he, tied himself to McCarthy, and was, he could break careers in his column. And so it was interesting for me to have been introduced to this person through my dad decades ago, and to have this entire documentary on him and look into his life and aspects of it that I had known nothing about. So that was an interesting documentary. Oh, and look, good, it's still available on demand, so I'm not tempting you with something that you can't see. Let me think. I did really enjoy both Holy Silence and Syndrome K. And again, I thought seeing those back to back together was really fascinating. And the idea of creating a fake disease to fool the Nazis so that they could keep these patients, and scaring them with the fact like, oh, you don't want to go in that ward because it's highly contagious. And I thought that was a really fascinating story that I had not known about. I'm trying to think, I should have refreshed my memory about what some of the other documentaries were. I didn't get to see many so far narrative films. So I know we talked about a few, but I don't know if anybody has seen some of the narrative films and has some to recommend, because I'm still looking to watch a few more. So I don't know if anyone has some recommendations along those lines.
And then I know Nancy has her hand raised. She wanted to speak on Perfect. And maybe if you also have some other narrative films, Nancy, that you'd like to discuss alongside those.
Yes. So I really liked Perfect, though it was one thing that struck me was the fact that all of the individuals in this film were all so self-confident and self-aware, and that just seemed to me to be striking. So I did ask a question during the discussion as to how they found these people, and it turns out that they had interviewed about 150 people, individuals, to choose the ones that were to be in the film. And some of the attributes that and what made these 5 or 7 people be chosen had something to do with their, with their self-confidence and their ability to speak out, and how they had either come to grips with their congenital disease, or with the results of their accident. And it's an interesting theme which comes up in other places as well. The film that somebody mentioned, Here We Are, is also about a family with a child who's has a disability. And I just watched a film today, the documentary on Audrey Flack, which was really interesting to me because she's a New Yorker from my age group, and I'm a New Yorker from that age group. And I think I remember her from way back when, in the 70s, 90s, etc., when she was most active. But she also has, her first daughter was autistic and was born during a time when people were not aware of how to deal with autism, and it became a lifelong problem for her. It affected her as a mother, and as and as an artist for many years. So I really like that crossover among the between multiple films. The Audrey Flack film was also, it like the other documentaries, it was really engaging, and she's she's a famous artist, and I was about to send a message to my cousin, who also was in the art world in New York, to see if she knew her at the time. But okay, so that's on that. Narrative film that I really liked was, and unfortunately I think it's not available anymore, is Thou Shalt Not Hate. It was like a bit of not a noir film, but kind of a murder mystery, and a lot of wrenching emotions, and really interesting story about I guess the Italians who were, there was an accident involved, and in a family that was kind of like a neo-Nazi family, or at least the son was like that, and supposedly the father was in the crowd as well. But it was disturbing in ways, but it was very gripping, and really well done. I kind of a thriller emotional effect to it that I really liked. It was beautifully made. And let me just do a scan here and see if there's anything else that really caught my eye. I did like The Crossing. It's a very warm-hearted family type film. The Keeper on Broadway was interesting because I grew up on Broadway watching Broadway shows, and so I knew a lot of the stuff there.
And it's also interesting, since we don't have any Broadway right now, to have a documentary.
Right.
Chronicles.
And the director mentioned that during the opening remarks that he gave. So that one was good. The Keeper was a nice, well, it's a biopic, but it's not but a fictionalized one. And I liked it at first. It was very engaging. And then, afterwards it kind of felt like some of it was a little too obvious, but it's also no longer available. So don't eat your heart out anymore. Right? So, and I guess that's kind of it for now. Still working away on everything. I did like, well,
we are
oh,
only halfway
yeah.
through, so you guys still have time to see quite a few films.
But it takes an intensive effort. Adventures of a Mathematician was sort of interesting, but
oh yeah,
not as strong as some other of the documentaries. But so I guess I will shut up now. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nancy. And I have to say too, I was a huge fan of the On Broadway documentary. If I could swivel my monitor enough, I would show everybody all of my framed Broadway posters. So it spoke directly to me. But I really did enjoy that one and thought it was an interesting look at kind of the history of Broadway on a very geographic level, which I thought was very cool. Not just the art piece of it, but just quite literally how it became Broadway and the theaters became situated where they came to be. I thought that was very fascinating. We are going to start wrapping up in just a couple minutes. So if you have any last comments that you want to make or any last questions that you'd like to ask to either Beth or to the group, as she said, there is still a few days to watch many of the films that are still available. So please, please, please definitely take advantage of these incredible films and this incredible opportunity.
You can take a day off and just watch movies from morning until night, which is what I tend to do. I go for an intense moment, where I devote myself entirely to a festival and try to cram as many films in as possible. I don't know if any of you have heard, but there was a film called the Loneliest Film Festival off Sweden. It's a tiny island, but since the Swedish festival couldn't do a live event, they decided they were going to have it on this tiny island where it's currently dark all the time. And there's only one hotel, and it was going to be one person alone. And they wanted them to watch 60 films in 7 days. And the only other person who would be there would be the hotel clerk, who would provide you with food. And they wanted to see how watching films alone might affect your experience. But I so desperately wanted to apply for that, but I couldn't get over the fear of flying to Sweden during COVID. But the idea of being locked in a room all by myself for 7 days with nothing to do but watch movies was kind of a heavenly thing, I thought. But so I don't know if anyone has a final recommendation or a tip about how you might want to watch films.
I do just want to share with everybody before we have our last few comments that we are running a flash sale for tickets until 6 p.m. tomorrow, the 18th. So you can get 3 films for $30. And you can use the code, I'll put this all in the chat too, but you can use the code FLASH30 at checkout on the Evented platform. and you can get 3 films for 30 bucks, which is a pretty good deal. So if you heard about some films in the chat tonight that you haven't seen yet and you're looking to get your tickets, there's a good deal out there.
And people are asking if On Broadway is still available. Does anyone know? It's
That
not.
one was a limited time screening, unfortunately.
That one might surface somewhere though, because it's the kind of documentary that I think people are interested in seeing. And it really interviews so many people that such a wide diverse array of talent that it might pop up on something like Amazon or a streaming channel. Well, I think we got a hand over there. Sarah? Can she be unmuted? We have to find you first.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
Found you.
Yeah,
There
I'm
you are.
wondering how Stranger Sister was, if anybody saw it.
I have not. Has anybody seen that one? Stranger Sister?
Stranger Sister, yeah, it was a little bit tough to hear you, Sarah, so I just wanted to make sure everyone knew. Stranger Sister is the one we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Let me make it louder.
Yeah, I did not see that.
Yes, I was talking about Stranger Sister.
Well, wonderful opportunity if, like Beth was saying and Abby was mentioning, so there is an opportunity still to see that one. Oh, and Nancy, have you seen that film? Oh, apologies, you're still
We
muted.
got Michelle, did you?
Okay, unmute. All right. No, I have not seen that one. I just wanted to give my tip about how to, I'm an underwriter, and every year in the past that I've gone to the film festival, I try and see every film. And I'm trying to see every film on this one as well. So that required some organization. And the first thing I did was check the list for which ones had limited time. And I always put them at the top of my list to see them first. And then anything that had a discussion, I made sure that I watched that film the day before. They put that in my schedule as well. So that really helped. And otherwise, then I've been kind of either going by row or as they show up, or looking for something, like a shorter film that will fit in a slot that I have available. But and I've grouped some of the documentaries together and then tried to leave something light as the last film of the night or something, because there's a lot of depressing ones as well. So that's been, but the key thing, and unfortunately it's a little late for some of them, was to put, I did an early review of everything that was a limited run, and I put those at the top of my list to watch them first. So that's
Good move.
that's
And
my deal.
Michelle,
That's my suggestion.
Michelle, you had your hand up. Had you seen the film we were talking about, or did you? I don't know if you can unmute Michelle.
There we go.
Okay, you're live.
Thank you. I saw Stranger Sister, and being on film selection is a great experience. And I've got to tell you, it wasn't my favorite film. It just did not ring true to me. I had trouble relating to the characters. I thought it was rather ambitious. And so I'll be really interested in what people think about it. And screening films is like horse racing. You pick your horse, some win, some don't. And it's such a personal decision. I would encourage you to watch it and have your own opinion, which I always love hearing about.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for, oh, wait, one last, Sarah, one last.
We will unmute Sarah.
Okay, I think you're,
There we go.
I used to write reviews for the film festival, and I want to say a number of years ago, I saw East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, and I loved it. I saw it twice, and I even bought the CD that David Broza had made. And so anyway, I think that there's something to be said for uplifting films. You know, I think that it's important for morale. And then Ryan had asked, you know, how do we choose which films? It was tough. I was thinking, okay, which films will be uplifting? And it was between Stranger Sister or the one about the Holy Land, you know. And so I thought, you know, I wanted films that were inspiring, films that were uplifting, you know, that kind of thing. So, and then I have a question, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to this. Doesn't have to do with the film festival, but the Anti-Defamation League, I've been getting their emails, and I noticed that when I go to their articles, the articles are about anti-Semitism, and I just it's and like in its entirety, and it's just I don't know if they're being spammed or if I don't know. I don't know if they have new leadership, but I just find that I get upset when it's like the whole article. And I was wondering if anybody else experienced that too, because years ago when Morris Cassuto was the director, there wasn't anything like that. So I don't know if it's like new journalism or what, because I'm a journalist. And has anybody else experienced that? No.
no.
No, I'm so sorry. I can't speak to that so much. I do also receive their emails. But that's an excellent point. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I think, as Beth was starting to do, I think we're going to wrap up here. I first want to say thank you so much to Beth and to all of you. As I said at the beginning of the start of this program, it was really an effort to connect as a community in a way that unfortunately we haven't had the ability to do in person throughout the course of not just this film festival, but for a lot of us for the past year. So I believe that in that way, we've really accomplished that. We are so grateful that all of you were here today, or this evening rather, to talk about your films and have an opportunity to connect with Beth, who is such a treasure in our community, and not just our film community, but our entire community with your knowledge and your enthusiasm about this industry. It is such a pleasure to witness. And so we are so grateful for you to be here and be able to talk about the film festival. As Abby and Ryan have mentioned, we still have, and Beth, we still have several days of the film festival ongoing. We have other live programs that you can participate in, some more director, moderator talks coming up. So please visit our website to experience all of those and see what your options are for viewing and for our live programs. But for now, I just want to say another very hearty and sincere thank you to everybody and for supporting us and being here this evening. We are grateful and hope that you all enjoy the rest of your viewing for the next few days.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.